Welcome to EP Daily. Today on the show, we get our asses to Mars in the rundown.
Plus, we have loads of vehicular mayhem, starting with the Mad Max video game.
And then we have more car craziness with a review of Carmageddon Reincarnate. Also coming up, the cars keep coming with a look back at the classic cartridge game Micro Machines Twin Turbo. Things get extra twisted with Twisted Metal on the PS2, and much more today on EP Daily. Brought to you by EB Games. I'm your host, Marissa Roberto, bringing you the latest and everything cool every single day. I don't know anything about Mars, but I do know a lot about the rundown. Prepare for liftoff. Alien and Blade Runner director Ridley Scott is taking us to a new and very tiny off-world colony. Take a look at the new science fiction film, The Martian. It takes place in the not-too-distant future and focuses on a NASA astronaut played by Matt Damon, who's stranded by himself on Mars after his crew mistakes him for dead. With limited supplies, he'll have to use his brain to learn how to survive on the alien world long enough for a rescue mission to reach him. Hopefully, real-life missions to Mars won't be as treacherous when they start happening in the next few decades. The Martian will hit Earth on November 25th.
In your face, Neil Armstrong.
There's going to be one last show based on a comic book this fall. The TV series Constantine is officially dead. It was canceled by NBC last month, but many fans had hoped it would be able to pull off a deal with the devil and be resurrected on a rival network. Speaking with fans, executive producer Daniel Cerrone has revealed that efforts to find a new home for the show have failed, so the show will never return. Constantine is based on a DC Comics character of the same name. Although it won't be back, there are about 1 million other new shows based on DC properties on the way, including Supergirl and the Flash Arrow spin-off Legends of Tomorrow. You weren't dead?
Nope.
That's it for the rundown. Now look who it is to join me with his guns a-blazing. Scott C. Jones. Scott, how do you feel about Constantine?
This is my connection to Constantine. I would be watching Dateline on Friday nights, and then suddenly the advertisements would come up for there being Constantine, which would air after Dateline. Now listen, I never really was a huge fan of the show. I did like the advertisements that I saw.
For the show?
Yeah. Did you like it? Were you a fan of the show?
No, do you know what though? I often have people messaging me on Twitter and on Instagram. No, just asking me to help save Constantine. Like they've been trying to save the show for so long.
And I love that, and that's exactly what Continuum went through recently. All the fans got together, and all the people like Marissa Roberto got together, and they were able to keep that show on for 6 more episodes. So maybe that can happen with Constantine.
No, it's not going to happen at all. It's done. It's over.
No, but fans will never give up. They really care about this stuff.
I know. Good fans never really give up. But they also, I mean, people wanted Firefly to come back. There was a lot of shows that have gone away and will never return. So I don't think this is one of them that's going to return. I'm sorry, everybody who loves Constantine. But you know what? There's a lot of other news. Yeah, I guess so today. It has to be me if you're not going to do it.
I'm not doing it.
But unfortunately, that's not going to happen anymore. What is going to happen, though, Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, so basically it's Interstellar 2.
Ridley Scott is directing. Obviously, that's the most attractive part of this recipe here. Yeah. Ridley Scott, I would watch him do anything after the incredible achievements he had, especially early in his career. I was not a big fan of Prometheus. I wasn't a fan at all of Prometheus. But I think Ridley Scott, Married to Space, throw Matt Damon in there. I'm into it.
Yeah, I was actually intrigued with the personality that Matt Damon's character has in this, because if it were me out in space, I'd be very depressed and probably just die.
I would probably just be trying to connect with pornography back on Earth.
You wouldn't have that.
I would figure it out with my nerd brain.
There are a few things, though, that I'm sure you're looking forward to with The Martian, other than Ridley Scott is directing, because you have your girlfriends in there.
All my girlfriends are in there.
All your girlfriends are in this movie. Like, you just see the preview, I'm like, wow, that's 1 girlfriend, that's 2 girlfriends for Jones?
Are you kidding? You think I didn't notice that?
Okay.
For sure I noticed that. Well, listen, let's leave our important news discussion behind for now. In fact, we've got Mad Max the game coming soon. Here's a closer look.
Who knew that 2015 was going to end up being the year of Mad Max? George Miller has been killing it in the movie theaters, and now Avalanche Studios is about to kill it, I think, from what I've seen, with Mad Max, the video game. Tell us a little bit about your vision for Mad Max as a video game.
From an art direction point of view, it's been really important to portray a really exciting Mad Max universe for a game. And we wanted to show a big open world that's interesting to explore, it's threatening to you, and the curiosity is always there. You really want to make sure what's going on over there, what's happened there, how can I protect myself. From a visual point of view, always standing on your toes, never know what to do next.
George Miller's universe and the way that he's populated it with all these really weird, grotesque-looking individuals and different environments and different kinds of dangers leaves a lot open for gameplay. What was imperative for this game?
I would say that the key thing for the game is the car combat and the car system. Like, the whole story is about how Max loses his car in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And then the whole story arc is about rebuilding that so he can, again, try to escape to the plains of silence that he seeks so badly.
There is a simplicity and almost a genius-level simplicity to the story that we're seeing in the movie. Is that something that you guys took to heart when you're building the game? You wanted to just keep it pure and fairly straightforward on what the objectives were?
There is a deeper thought behind the story, like in all the films and in the game now. It's how Max goes through a constant loop of being crazy or mad, and then he gets in contact with people. He gets a little bit more sane, and then some bad things happen and he goes mad again. So there is actually a deeper story than you think about.
The new movie is visually amazing. Universally, everybody is just blown away by the look of it. Did you know it was going to be that beautiful when it was being made?
No, not really. I mean, we had some initial contact in the beginning, but then we had different paths. So we've been working on this game for a few years now, and we had a strong idea what the universe should feel like, but visually we didn't really know. But I think today, I think at least, that we have a game that fully extend this dark beauty of the wasteland that the Mad Max universe portrays. I'm very happy with our product when we actually compare it to others.
Mad Max, the game, will be in stores this September.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, another classic kart review after this.
Welcome back to EP Daily. As Scott promised before the break, we're going back to a time now where I was not alive, but Vic and Scott were. Back to a time where people wore monocles and they rode bicycles with one big wheel in the front and one tiny wheel in the back, and they greeted women by saying, "Milady."
Are you done?
Yeah.
Time for another classic kart review. Here's Vic and Marissa.
I just can't believe you're still alive.
Oh my God.
Today's classic cartridge is Micro Machines 1 and 2 Twin Turbo. This is a Game Boy Color game which came out about the year 2000. And this is a classic franchise that had many, many iterations on different platforms. The Game Boy Color game kind of ropes in all of the NES Micro Machines 1 and 2 into one nice color-enabled GBC cartridge with lots of tracks, like 60 tracks and lots of different vehicles. It's an overhead racing game, and it's ugly as hell.
Well, I jumped into it, and it was so funny because the characters were hilarious, speaking through the characters. And now I'm thinking that I'm going to be playing as these characters. I'm going to love these characters. I'm going to see the character in the car.
No.
No way.
Just pop up at the wins and losses,
There's no point in picking a character at all, like feeling any kind of attachment to them. But there really is a plethora of different characters here, and I was so impressed with that. And then jumping into the game, I'm playing on top of a desk. I'm racing on top. I'm racing little boats somewhere, I don't know, in some kind of bathtub or sink.
Yes.
Like, so they really are micro machines.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, this is part of the reason why we're wanting to do these classic cartridge games is these developers didn't have anything to work with, and they had to come up with clever ways to kind of approximate what it would look like for these little tiny vehicles to race around. And they did do that, but they had to also work on sound mechanics and fundamentals of just sort of gameplay. And that's where this game and this series has always really excelled. It's really fun. And it's really, precise, and it really delivers the sense of scale that you need it to. And there's been lots of top-down racers over the years. There's a lot of big successful ones in mobile right now. And I think the time is ripe for Micro Machines to kind of make a resurgence. And it's also fun for us to go back through, the Electric Playground's massive library of titles and replay some of these games. I had a lot of fun playing this.
I also had fun until I ran into some obstacles on the track, like jelly beans that would slow me down, or bubbles for some reason that would also slow me down, like almost bring me to a halt on the track.
It does get infinitely more difficult, and you get all kinds of cool new vehicles, like you know, little 4x4s and military style kind of vehicles.
A lot of different micro machines.
I dig that a lot. I think it's really cool, and I think, you know, it's fun to applaud and go back and applaud developers when they had successes like this. They didn't have anything to work with. The guts of the Game Boy Color were pretty abysmal, and it's especially apparent now, but they still made a game that gave you a lot of different sort of gameplay.
Yeah, you're not going to jump into this for the visuals at all. You're not even going to jump into it for the sound design, because it is also pretty terrible. Just the screeching that I'm hearing constantly, the squealing of the track. That was a constant thing. But honestly, outside of that, I did really enjoy myself, and I wasn't expecting to. So for that, I'm giving it a pretty decent score. What are you giving Micro Machines?
8.5.
Nice. It's getting an 8 from me.
Oh man, that was so fun. You know, it was so fun. Let's stay in the past and review another classic car game.
Okay, here's Ben and Vic with a review of Twisted Metal Head On.
What's that?
It's my car.
Terrible.
You know, I gotta be honest, I love this game. It's for the PlayStation 2. It's an upgrade from the PSP Twisted Metal Head-On game that came out with the launch of the PSP. So it's a game that's been around for a long time, but they basically retooled it, up-resed it, made it suitable for television screens. But that's not why I like this game.
Why do you like this game?
I like all the extra content. I like all the, you know why I love this game? It's the really lousy Twisted Metal 1 movies that David Jaffe wrote and directed.
That is the selling point.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard about this yet, so they made these live action sequences for the original Twisted Metal game.
Yeah.
And they never included it. I can't believe they're not all up on YouTube yet.
Oh, they're incredible.
Really good.
But what's funny is that the video quality is so horrendously awful. You can see like distortion lines all the way through it as you're watching these old things. It's like they've been tapes that have just been thrown on some dustbin somewhere, and they had to like dust them off and stick them onto the game disc.
These are not fit for public consumption, which is exactly why they're so awesome to be here. Yeah.
And there's lots of cool behind-the-scenes video, kind of like a history telling you, you know, about the series creation. So it's fun to watch all that stuff. There's also this sort of never seen before Sweet Tooth action game where it's not really a game. You're running around as Sweet Tooth, and you're unlocking extra content like art and factoids and stuff like that, but it's interesting because you're playing through this level as Sweet Tooth, and you find these flaming skull heads and they give you information.
Well, I guess that came
from
a game that was initially developed and was never completed, this sort of action
it was supposed to be the
sequences.
sequel to Twisted Metal Black.
Right.
They were going to do this as part of the gameplay.
Right, and there's really no gameplay to that whole section. You're just sort of running around as this fat clown, picking up little flaming things and learning information. It's kind of a clever way to deliver content.
I thought it was
not really
cool.
a game.
I wish more sort of behind the scenes and extra content in games was kind of like that, where you actually got a slightly playable element to it. I thought that was pretty clever. And the other cool addition is that you actually get the lost levels from Twisted Metal Black, so you get some new content, a little bit of a story in there. You know, you get to go back into the Twisted Metal Black universe, which was one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games. I thought that was a really cool title.
Yeah.
And then the Twisted Metal Head-On game is actually pretty tight. It's a little bit more cel-shaded and a little bit more cartoony in the look. It's not as dark and twisted as Twisted Metal Black, but because it's a little bit different, it gives you a nice, you know, swath of flavors in the Twisted Metal universe, and it's fun stuff, and they have, you know, some multiplayer component, no online, but pretty solid.
I think the head-on content is good, and it was great on the PSP.
Yeah.
And I think this does suffer from the translation up to the PS2. And
controls better, though.
It controls better, but it definitely looks like a PSP game.
Sure
I mean,
does.
it's very simple in its art, its polygons.
Yeah.
It's not a good-looking game, and I even thought that the lost levels, which come from the Twisted Metal Black engine, which is a fancier engine than the one they used for Head-On, I even think those levels looked a little plain because they obviously weren't really
they didn't finish them.
Yeah, they weren't fit to be put in the original game, so they weren't completed. Yeah. But when you combine all that information together, when you take Twisted Metal Head-On, Twisted Metal Black lost levels, all this extra content, the DVD stuff,
and then you throw in $20 price point. Don't forget that.
Well, that's really where this all comes together, right? I mean, $20. How could you not? Even if you didn't care about Head-On, even if you didn't care about lost levels, even if you didn't want to run around as a fat clown and learn all these little behind-the-scene tidbits, those videos are absolutely worth $20.
Big time. What are you going to give Twisted Metal Head-On Extremely Twisted Edition? What are you going to give this game?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
8.5.
Whoa.
A little EP trivia for you. That was one of Ben Silverman's first reviews ever.
Wow.
He was a virgin, man.
He was great, though, wasn't he?
And he was a virgin.
After the break, we're going to check in with Stephen Raju in Toronto. So unfortunately, we're not sightseeing or seeing a Blue Jay game, but we're checking out an all-new Carmageddon game after this.
Welcome back to EP Daily. Cars are a species that usually have no trouble cohabitating at all, except for the cars in the Carmageddon series. Boy, those cars do not seem to get along. Steve and Raju are reviewing the latest game. It's called Carmageddon Reincarnation. Here's the review.
There is a long history of games where you in a car and you get to smash stuff. Today we're looking at a new game with that called Carmageddon Reincarnation. But you'll note from that sort of reincarnation that there was an old game. There was an original Carmageddon.
There was an original Carmageddon.
In 1997.
I was a huge fan of the original Carmageddon. It was a game, it was actually a very controversial game at the time because you drove around running over pedestrians. That was the whole thrust of the game. This is a kick-started rebirth by, I believe, the same people or some of the same people who did the first Carmageddon. And it really is a faithful do-over of a game that I love. It's a little nasty to look at. It's very nasty to play because it's about racing and it's about destruction derby, but it's all about running people down and their body parts go flying.
This game, I think, looks okay.
Just okay.
It controls okay.
Yeah, I mean, the physics are super floaty. That's kind of how the game always was, though. The cars are not easy to drive.
No.
That's kind of part of the whole Carmageddon thing.
The controller support is, I would say, iffy. I think they really want you to play on the keyboard. Semi-long loading times.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
times are not great.
One thing I did like, though, is the customization in your free play zones, where you can be like, okay, I'm just hunting pedestrians right now, or I'm just I'm going after other car guys. I do think in the single player, oh my God, when the cars are coming after you.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny because the basic classic mode is Classic Karma, where it's essentially a checkpoint race, but you can turn it into a destruction derby, or you just run over people to get points. So it's funny how these races will start out as races and almost immediately devolve into everybody smashing everybody else. And you're trying to take out the rest of the guys to win. It's kind of fun because you can win that way, or you can like sort of say, okay, you guys all smash each other. I'm going to sneak away and actually run the laps and win that way.
I'm wondering from your perspective as an old school fan, does it scratch that itch?
Yeah, they've done a really good job of kind of replicating what the old game felt like. You're driving around like a city, there's a beach level, there's these industrial levels, a whole mix of levels, a lot of verticality, you can get on roofs, and you got all these wild power-ups that were brought over from the original game, like the spring thing that slams guys into walls, and a kangaroo hop, and all these crazy power-ups, all these crazy environmental effects. It really does capture the chaos and the old school look and feel of the first game, because again, it ain't a pretty looking game.
Does not look that good and doesn't play that well.
It's an acquired taste. I mean, there's a fair bit to do. And there's the classic races, there's the pedestrian hunting thing where you're basically just running around trying to hit pedestrians. It's a checkpoint challenge, you're trying to collect checkpoints. If you wreck an opponent, you steal his checkpoints. Checkpoint! The whole system building up credits, which you then cash in to repair yourself on the fly. You don't want to do that too much because you don't unlock the new levels. I felt that, yeah, it scratched my Carmageddon itch.
I didn't know exactly what to expect out of this game, but I kept waiting for some sort of hook, something that, made me care, made me want to play this game more, other than obviously getting my jollies off, running over people.
I can see that, and even as a classic Carmageddon fan, I didn't love the game outright. Like, I thought it did take me back to the old game. I did like unlocking new levels, playing new modes. I tried to play online a bit, but there was nobody else online. Yeah. And everybody else is really good. It was online anyway. That's so fun. I'd rather play AI guys. They all start smashing each other, they get stuck in corners, they get lost, and it's much easier to victimize the AI. So, we have an old school perspective, we have a new school perspective. I'm curious what you're going to give Carmageddon Reincarnation.
I'm give it a 6 out of 10.
I like a little more than that, 7.5 for me. And back to the old days of run down pedestrians.
Bravo, boys, bravo. And listen, the Twitter question of the day is next after these words from our sponsor.
If you want more EP, go to our website, epn.tv, for bonus content and full episodes. We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to EP Daily. It is time now for the best part of today's show and every show, of course. It is the Twitter question of the day. This one comes from Michael Trainer. He's at Michael Trainer. Yep. Nice score on the Twitter name, buddy. He asks, what is something you don't want to see at E3?
Well, I would like to not go to any press conferences that go too long. That's something that always happens at E3.
Do you have a specific game in mind that you don't really want to see?
Well, I mean, I think any of the sequels, I don't want to see anymore. It's not exciting. I mean, I know we're going to get Halo news. I know we're going to probably get some, you know, lots of Ubisoft stuff this year, especially with the new Assassins coming out later in the year. I don't want any of that. I want to see some new stuff. He didn't want to know what I did want to see, which is one of the things I didn't want to see. I don't want to see the old stuff, all right?
You're done with the old.
Out with the
old. Well, I know what I don't want to smell. So I want everybody to put on extra coats of deodorant before they get on the floor of E3 because I don't want to be smelling you.
Also, breath mints.
Also, breath mints are fantastic. Yeah. Great. So just, you know, clean it up. We've got more coming for you in the next episode of EP Daily, but make sure you catch all of this at epn.tv.
We're already cooking up a new EP story. It's a preview of LEGO Dimensions. You can see that tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.
EP would like to thank its sponsors, Nintendo, Xbox. EP's mobile coverage is brought to you by Gameloft, makers of Dungeon Hunter 5, which you can play for free on iOS and Android right now.
What's helped is obviously having a great track record. The team's now been building games in the LEGO space for over a decade, you know, starting all the way back with LEGO Star Wars, and having those be such a great hit and such a big success, and fans have embraced those games. It's a fun sort of way to experience each of those IPs.
Sweet ride, Batman.
Quite frankly, a lot of the properties that are in this game have come to us over the years, and we've now had the opportunity to finally bring them all together.
Great Scott!